Look, I get why they made the movie, but did it have to be like this? What's up, everybody? So let's talk about the final Alien movie in the Ellen Ripley saga, as I like to call it. And this one is a difficult one for me. Uh, I love Sigourney Weaver. I love the fact that she just was totally honest in the promotion of this movie when they asked her like why come back for another one, and she basically said, "Well, they backed up the Brinks truck for me," and I can appreciate that. It's like I think she got paid a nice $11 million at the time back in 1996, 97 when they were making it, even though it came out in 97. And that's a lot of money. I mean, you take inflation in it, and it's probably closer to 20 million at the end. Um, but as a movie itself, it's the weird one. It's the redheaded stepchild of this particular story arc. You know, even with all the flaws that Alien 3 has, there's still some really, really cool things overall. And with Alien Resurrection, there's just bits that are interesting. There's some interesting ideas, but as far as execution, storyline, character development, characters added, it doesn't work for me. Like on zero level. I remember watching this when it came out in HBO back in the day and just being so bored that I just start flipping through the channels. And then eventually I go back because it's like, all right, no, we got to finish this. And the things that I liked about it, I like how she's basically, Ellen Ripley is now a clone, basically. After the events of Alien 3, and she throws herself into the incinerator, and the Queen Alien bursts out of her chest. They try to clone her. I think it's like 200 years later, something like that. They try and clone her, and her human DNA is like mixed with the alien DNA. So I'm like, that's kind of interesting. The other interesting aspect is like she's called, I believe, number nine. And at some point in the story, you see that she walks into this room where you see the other iterations of her clone that went horribly wrong. And it's got a lot of body horror aspects of it, but it makes sense, and it's a nice little thing to add on to it, to kind of add to like have it the horror element, because you are horrified when you see the different ways in which her clone went wrong. And then when you see the final one is like can barely talk and is obviously suffering, and she basically just puts her out of her misery. It's like, okay, that was kind of interesting. It was compelling, and you couldn't take your eyes away from it. The other really cool part I thought was this action sequence with where this room is being flooded and they have to swim in it to kind of get to the other side to continue escaping the aliens. And that was cool because then the aliens also jump in, the xenomorphs, I should say, and they're swimming around. And it really kind of adds to the terror and suspense of it all. You're like, oh my God, are they going to make it? Who is the one that's going to be sacrificed, basically, at that point? And I thought the sequence itself, lots of tension, lots of drama. I like the special effects aspect of it. It almost made me feel as if that was the kind of care and attention that David Fincher would have appreciated in his own movie. And then when they finally surface at the other end, that opening is surrounded by eggs. I was like, that's a great thing. It's like adds to the tension and the hopelessness of their particular situation. Everything else, nah. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the ragtag of like basically almost kind of like space mercenaries that are, they're there to do a job and they delivered and blah, blah, blah. I like Ron Perlman because he's just awesome in general. But, Winona Ryder's, she's a great actor. She obviously got paid a ton of money for this, so that's probably why she did it. But she's like the most boring android of all the Alien movies. Um, Gary Durham, I believe is his name. He plays Work Brown in the first few seasons of CSI. It was kind of nice to see him, but everyone else is very forgettable. You know, there's the one dude in the wheelchair, and as they're scanning them in the beginning when they arrive at the space station, they're scanning them to make sure they don't have any weapons, and then later on it's revealed he's got bits and pieces of it that he puzzles together when needed. That was kind of cool, but I don't remember anything else about his character. Dan Hedaya, who plays, I think, the commander of the space station, forgettable as well. I mean, this is the dude that played the guy in, uh, the dictator or wannabe dictator in Commando back in 1987. It's like I remember him in that role. That was great. But in this role, it's like, eh? There's very little that I took away from it that I was like a net positive. And including and especially the last thing that just did not work for me was the alien human hybrid at the very end. And I remember one of the things they used to do back in the day before a movie premiered on HBO is leading up to it, they would show like a behind the scenes expose. And you get interviews with the actors, with the set designers, with the director, maybe even the writer and the producers. And they kind of give you a little, hype you up for the movie that's coming out. And I remember for this one in particular, they kept talking about, the new alien creature is going to blow everyone away. And I'm looking forward to it. And then at the end, when it's finally revealed, it's like, this was what you guys came up with. I mean, it looked like a sad alien, really. It was like alien, like head with a human kind looking face, a slightly more human looking body, but just was kind of grotesque, which that's fine if you want to make it grotesque, but it just seemed like not very creative. I'm sure there were some points in the production where there were much scarier looking iterations of what they finally ended up on. And I wish to have seen that. I think that would have been better. But it is what it is. And fun fact, this was written by Joss Whedon. And when you watch it with how the characters talk to each other, it feels like a Joss Whedon movie. But aside from that, it's not really one that I would watch again if I don't have to. I watched it for this video, and yeah, I'm giving you my 2 cents. But what about you guys? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button, give me a follow, and I'll see you guys next time.